And good morning, folks. Galen Clavio here from the Back Home Network and CrimsonCast. It's great to be joining you. It is a absolutely perfect morning here in Bloomington, Indiana. Sun is shining. We got birds cheeping in the background. Light breeze, 68 degrees, and it just now turned 10 o'clock. So this is a great time, obviously, to be in Bloomington these spring mornings. The little rewards we get, I guess, for living through what winter normally provides us, which is not a lot of fun. So anyway, it's good to have you folks joining us here. We are going to be talking about college basketball for the next hour or so, recap the games that happened yesterday, and we'll talk a bit about the games that happened upcoming today. Scott's going to be joining me shortly here. He had a little errand he had to run before he joined, but if you'd like to chat, again, just utilize the chat either on YouTube or on X. We're also actually on Twitch, but I don't know how many of you are watching there. David notes, love the hat. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's I get a lot of compliments on it. I got it at the Indiana shop on Kirkwood like 5 years ago. It's a nice addition. It's not really it's a logo style I've never seen before with IU. Let's put it that way. But it's nice. You know, it's good foam quality hat. Anyway, just a reminder, folks, we are brought to you by Home Field Apparel, your place to go for the finest in college fashions, the softest fabrics, the coolest designs. Home Field with the full college basketball collection for you, regardless of what team you happen to be rooting for. There's probably something from Home Field Apparel in the shop. So head over to homefieldapparel.com or follow them on social media. You can use the code HOME23 and get 15% off your first order. Again, that's homefieldapparel.com. We appreciate their sponsorship. Also, Posh Hotel Bloomington. Head down to Kirkwood and Washington for the finest in luxury accommodations in Bloomington, as Posh Hotel has you covered. Luxurious amenities throughout the hotel, wonderful bar downstairs, and it's the right move for your next football weekend or basketball weekend or Little Five or what have you. So go to poshhotelbloomington.com and get yourself booked for this upcoming summer or fall. And we'll be down there doing some live shows, I think, at some point here during the spring and early summer. So we're looking forward to that. Again, thank you to Posh Hotel Bloomington. Also, just a reminder, Mesa Stillwell is your person to contact at Atlas of Memories Travel Co. If you go to Facebook and look up Atlas of Memories Travel Co., you will find a wonderful site where you can get help with a variety of your travel needs. Mesa doing all kinds of business directly with a variety of travel companies. So you want to be sure to check that out, and she can get you squared away in terms of all of your travel needs for this upcoming spring or summer. Again, that's Atlas of Memories Travel Co. And you want to talk to Mesa Stillwell there. You can either text her, send a message to her via Facebook, or we'll have the text number for you a little bit later on in the show. Anyway, Scott has joined us. Scott, how you doing?
Good, man. How's the concrete project going in the back? Everyone wants to know.
They're gone now, okay. Finally. Fortunately, I guess you can do concrete leveling in the span of a morning on the holiday weekend. So I guess it's not a holiday weekend. It feels like a holiday weekend because of the tournament. Yes, well, but no,
it's our holiday weekend. So I hear the birds, last night. I hear the birds. Saw someone to sex last night. I hear the birds in your backyard. Just in our backyard, helped my son build a woodpecker diorama. Wow. We saw a hawk, like a bird, like picking at something in the forest behind our house. My wife did a picture, like sent it out. A Cooper's hawk. So there you go.
Oh.
Didn't even know that was. I knew that's a wine club. I didn't know it was a thing.
I don't even know if I had to pick that out in a book. I don't know that I could, honestly. So
I couldn't, and I was just like, I didn't know what it was, and that's where Google comes in. But yeah, just saw a hawk, listening to the birds. I love the next month. I love the change of seasons. I get really tired of winter in the middle of winter. I get real tired of summer in the middle of summer. But I love spring and I love fall. I love the changes.
Yeah, well. I like some of that, but I would just prefer it be warm all the time. I would deal with not having that.
No, then you moved to the wrong place. You should have stayed.
I did. I agree. 100%. Yes. Like, I think the only places I can really realistically live in this country are probably Miami or San Diego. And there's some financial implications with either of those. That's a bit problematic.
There's a reason. A lot of other people agree with you, and that's why house prices are very expensive. So
correct. Anyway, we have a bunch of folks in the chat, and we want to get to those as well. We're going to recap what happened last night. We're going to talk about the games coming up later today. So if you've got comments or questions, folks, hop in with the rest of the folks. A lot of people excited that Scott joined here. Justin, good morning. And as Steve points out, the night games were indeed excellent. Let's start with
well, that goes to our discussion yesterday. To me, I was thinking about this last night. It's not always about upsets that make a great tournament. It's great games. I mean, last night, Vanderbilt, Nebraska, no matter who won, it wasn't going to be an upset, but that game was electric. And everybody, you have a couple more days like that. It's like, God, this tournament was awesome. And so like the talk of it's too chalky, to me, the question is really more, are the games good? Because you could have a ton of upsets and those games could be sucky. And like normally, like, I remember when Florida Gulf Coast won by like 15, like if you have an upset and you win by a lot, it's still exciting. But I think the concerns are less about the chalkiness of the tournament and more for a little bit there. It was like all the games were bad, but yesterday was awesome. All of the games were pretty nip and tuck. And that Nebraska Vanderbilt game was awesome.
Yeah, that was one of the better games we've seen in the tournament in a while. But, as like Noah Myers notes, Butler flashbacks in that game. A lot of people happy for Nebraska fans. I know when Grace and I were talking a couple of weekends ago, it was like, we'd like to see Nebraska do well.
Yeah.
Talked about that on the podcast this week. It's just like, it's sometimes you get this in conferences, especially when you haven't had enough time to really establish a firm foundation of hatred for a particular team. You can root for them. It's like when, I don't know, like up until this year, you could probably root for Oregon football and not feel anything negative about it. Maybe you still can, since obviously we seem to own them at this point. But the idea of like Nebraska basketball not threatening, if you're an Indiana fan, you can root for them in a tournament setting the way you just couldn't root for Illinois or root for Michigan State or somebody like that. But what a game.
It's like when you and I went to the UCLA game at UCLA, and it's kind of just like, hey, we don't have anything against other. Although I do remember, I think you and I were at the Big Ten championship in Indy before Nebraska had joined. And it's like they had a halftime show where it's like, we're welcoming in Nebraska, and the whole place booed. And they're like, no, they're one of us now. Like, it's okay to be fans of them. And it's like, no. But no, I mean, happy for them. And as you pointed out on Twitter, it's like that is the Gordon Hayward support club. Like, my God, like two shots that I don't know how either of them didn't go down. I mean, the Hayward one is still like baffling. The one last night, it hit both rims, like it hit the front and the back. And what's amazing is I've watched, years of basketball, as have you. And then you get these moments where it's like, I don't know if I've ever seen a shot miss like that before.
I'm sure I have seen it miss,
or maybe not with that much shot. Like, I'm sure I've seen it miss like that, like on a layup or like you just see little things. You're like, damn, that's one of 5 that I've seen in the thousands and millions of hours of basketball I've watched. It was just wow.
It's just normally you don't see it go out if it hits backboard and then is in the cylinder. I mean, that one, and it's funny because you listen to the post-game press conferences with the Nebraska guys, and Hoiberg was like, I saw that go up and I was like, oh, that's going in. And it just, it's one of the fascinating things. And it's why I think the Vanderbilt player,
he kind of backed up like he knew. He's like, oh, man,
he knew.
Yeah, he knew.
Yeah. So that will go down in history, I think, as one of those that we'll see. It is interesting, though, because like the Hayward shot has become less of a highlight over time because it doesn't go in. These things are always more emotional in the moment, but since it doesn't go in, it's not a buzzer beater.
Right.
And so therefore it doesn't enter into the pantheon of highlights, but everybody that watched it will remember.
And it went out as if like it was a carnival game. Like it just had that miss of like, it really went out with force. Yeah.
So a couple of comments here. Yeah. The Nebraska game gave me flashbacks to the Peach Bowl because their fans took over the arena. It felt like watching a home game. It's true.
Yeah.
It was impressive Omaha and Nebraska, not that close to Oklahoma City. I know they look like they're close because they're in the middle of the country, but that's a pretty long drive. So, no, good for Nebraska fans.
Where's their next game at?
They're in Florida's region, and that's Houston. So it's a little bit further.
Okay, so it may not do another takeover, but
someone Google this. How long does it take to drive from Omaha to Houston? I'm guessing probably 13 hours. That might be overdoing it. I'm not totally sure. Might be longer than that.
I'm doing it now. It's 15 to 16 hours. So it's not quite like Indy to Atlanta. So get going now. The Stampede to Houston.
No, it's the combine to Houston. You know,
it's the corn trail to Houston.
Grab your international harvester. We're heading to Texas.
Good for that.
There were good games elsewhere too. Is that made my wife pause her show to watch the last 5 minutes of Texas. That one was another fun one. And
what was the show? I just want to know what show they paused. Please come back in the comments.
I'm curious. But the interesting thing on that front to me is just the way that we talked about this yesterday when we talked about, well, what games could be upsets. And I think I mentioned Xavier, Texas had the possibilities. Gonzaga, Texas had the possibility. Get my Jesuit institutions confused.
And Sean Miller coached both of them.
I thought to myself, well, I just think Texas is going to run out of gas because they played. But as Justin notes, Gonzaga overrated. I will say this: this is the trap that we've run into for years with West Coast Conference teams, where their metrics are so good because they are so efficient. St. Mary's has the exact same problem. And then some years they're not that good. And some years they are. And I honestly, this was probably my worst call before the tournament started, because I was like, Gonzaga might actually be a team that can make noise in the tournament. I did not go back and really carefully study their resume. And when I went back and did that after I said it, I was like, that was pretty stupid, Galen, because they have a nice neutral court win against Alabama earlier this year, but they lost by 50 to Michigan. Yeah. And their only other wins of note were home wins against Oklahoma and Creighton, and neither of those are particularly impressive. So there have been years when Gonzaga's been awesome. And this is where I think people remember the times when they haven't made it. But look, they had a string there from 21 to 24 where they went second overall in the tournament. Obviously they lost that final to Baylor. Sweet 16, Elite 8, Sweet 16. So there are years where Gonzaga is legitimately good. It's just hard to tell sometimes with them because of the fact that they do tend to be KenPom merchants in the way that they play.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm looking through, like, it's hard to tell. It basically comes down to one or two games, like in the non-conference in November. It's like how they fare against a the best team they played. It's like it's just tough because the years they've done well in the tournament, it's like, oh, well, they beat somebody in the non-conference early, like they beat, UConn or something, but it's like you're taking it off of one game. Yeah. And then it's like they'll always have the games against St. Mary, but it's like St. Mary is also kind of like, I love the KenPom merchant. And so it's tough with them every single year.
Yeah. Nebraska fans were definitely very reactive. That was also the officiating yesterday was just terrible. I mean, the worst officiating of the day happened in the first game of the day, which was, the second game of the day, Duke TCU. That was a close game. And then the officials completely ruined it for the rest of the game. They really sparked a 17-2 Duke run, not just with the foul calls, but they blow a goaltending call when TCU is down 10. And then they tee up Jamie Dixon for complaining about the fact that they blew the call. It's just,
there was another tee, I think yesterday or Friday. Like, I've seen more tees in this tournament.
VCU, Phil Martelli Jr. got one in the Illinois VCU game. Right. And so I don't know. It's frustrating because the officiating hasn't been all bad. There's been some good officiating in this tournament, but we've had a couple of games now where it has just not been good. And we saw it in the play-in games. We saw it in that Duke TCU game. There's been a couple of other ones. It's just unfortunate. But as we move forward, hopefully that gets a little bit better. Tanis notes, I saw the TCU Duke game and had Damon Bailey phantom foul call flashbacks and had to turn the game off. I know. It's like once you've seen that stuff and it's affected your team, you can't help but feel for teams where it does affect them. But looking elsewhere at the games that happened yesterday, what I would say that I took away the most from yesterday was the following. Houston's legitimate.
Yep.
The thing with Houston that I have been concerned about, and I think everybody's been concerned about, I think even the color commentator yesterday mentioned this. You worry about their offense, and we're kind of conditioned to think about Houston as great defense, but they can't score when they need to. Well, they screwed around a little bit at the beginning of this game, but man, they came alive and they absolutely mauled Texas A&M. And it's just one of those deals where you can't help but look at that Houston team and say they seem to have all the pieces. They're actually a lot more efficient on offense this year than people think. Their defense is incredible. They get to play the Sweet 16 and then the Elite 8 team games in Houston. They're going to be in their own city, not in their own home gym, but they're going to be at the Rockets gym.
Right.
And man, they get to the Final Four. They've already been to a couple Final Fours. They were in the title game. They probably should have won the game last year. They are real good value right now to go win the national championship, especially with how Duke has looked over the course of the first couple of games. That would be their biggest threat, I think, coming out of that side of the regionals. And so that's going to be something interesting to keep an eye on.
I mean, the only counter to that is, the times that they've played the upper crust of college basketball, they've lost. Like they lost to Arizona twice, lost to Iowa State, lost to Kansas, lost to Tennessee, lost to Texas Tech. Like all the teams they've played top 20 of the rankings, they've lost to. They've not beaten a top 20 KenPom team this season. So,
well, I mean, they beat Kansas handily. That's not true. They beat Arkansas on a neutral floor. They beat Texas Tech at home.
They beat Arkansas. Oh yeah. All right. 18. Okay. So 118 Texas. All right. So 18th and 19th, but just, you have of the 6 of their losses are all, Arizona, Iowa State, Arizona. Like it's just, I'm not as concerned for them against Illinois. Illinois is such a Jekyll and Hyde team. Like it just depends on which Illinois team shows up. But like when they play Florida, how are they going to do? It would be my only concern, but I'm with you on the value piece of it.
Yeah. It is interesting because Florida themselves has not beaten any better teams. They beat Tennessee at home, but all of Florida's wins are against teams. I guess they did beat Vanderbilt on the road, although then they lost to them by 20-something in the SEC tournament. So I think everybody's got some flaws. I do like the fact that Houston is going to have that home court advantage. That's going to be something to keep an eye on, at least in the South Regional. So that was interesting. I thought Illinois.
Real quick before we get off of Houston, just the theoretical that all of my IU friends and I talk about, don't want to go deep into it. Do we have a title or two if just there's an alternate universe we never fire Sampson? Like don't get too deep into the weeds, but just like we don't fire him, we're like screw it, we just keep him and we keep him here. There you go. Do you think we have 1 or 2 titles? Because I think we do.
Probably. I mean, look, the thing is, Sampson when he was at IU was still not Sampson as he is today. And I've heard this talked about. Several people have said, well, perhaps he doesn't understand fully how to run a college program without the sabbatical that he's forced to take and has to go coach in the NBA and then gets his chance to kind of build from scratch at Houston. The thing is, I always wonder about that hypothetical because I don't know if IU athletics transforms into a modern athletic department without the Sampson scandal happening and the basketball revenue piece being put on a shelf for a little while. Like it almost forced, like, I don't think we have, it's funny because I'm going to put that question back up. Do we ever, would we have ever invested in a leap of faith hire like Curt Cignetti? Like, I don't think we invest in Curt Cignetti as a hire because I don't think we have the infrastructure in football, because I think if basketball continues at a high level, there's not the need or the vision to reinvent the athletic department as something that actually accommodates more sports than just basketball. So would Sampson still have been here is the big question, because it wasn't. I will always argue.
Sampson and Bill Lynch would be our coaching staff.
I will always argue that it wasn't the phone calls or the text messages or the violations of NCAA rules that led to Sampson not being here. It is the cultural incompatibility with what Sampson was bringing in and certain people in and around IU basketball and athletics that just didn't like the types of players. I mean, this is a coach that was on the verge of potentially bringing like Lance Stevenson as a college basketball player to Bloomington, or Devin Ebanks. Like these were, so much of the reaction to Sampson amongst athletics at the time was like, and you still hear it. It's like, oh, there was drug use on the team. It's like, guys, welcome to big time college athletics. If you don't think there was drug use happening before, no, that was a veiled, hey, you know what? We don't like the types of players that Sampson's bringing in. And so I think that would have been the hardest sled for a bunch of people, would have been trying to get their heads wrapped around IU basketball not being in their mindset. So this is one of those things where I don't know if I think the hypothetical of just him as a basketball coach is a fascinating one, but there were too many other elements to ever really think through what that would have been like and what that transition would have been for IU.
I'll end on this note. We talked about it yesterday, kind of just that taking a coach, plugging him in and seeing things work quickly. It doesn't actually work for him when you look at like Washington State. He went there and was kind of a 500 coach for 4 or 5 years. But then you look at, he goes
Washington State's a pretty terrible job, Scott.
No, I'm with you. But like Pitino went to Iona and just like immediately had 22 wins. I'm just saying.
I mean, Iona's a pretty good job in the Metro Atlantic Conference. But anyway, go ahead.
So, but he goes to Oklahoma and is 23-9 his first year, 18-12. And then he's off just like 20-win seasons back to back to back. I always bring this up. He goes to Indiana and it's like, he didn't just start off well. He's 21-11 and then 25. And I mean, his second year, they were like 24-3 when he got fired. So, I mean, just like he immediately turns around in Indiana and then he goes to Houston. First year, he's 13-19, but then he's 22-10. And it's like, we're off for the races. Just 21 wins, 27 wins. Now, granted, the American Conference is a little bit of like, you're not playing the best. It's probably easier to get 21 wins, but it's again that, as you look at coaches, the minute you have a great coach and he goes somewhere, he goes into it. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it'll always be one of the bigger what ifs in Indiana basketball history. I also just wonder if he's able to adapt at a time when every eyeball was on him. But there was also just not like normally when you hire a coach like Sampson and he's already like you have a show cause penalty that you had to go explain to the NCAA why you were hiring Kelvin Sampson. Like this actually happened. Normally you go in there and you protect that coach. You say, we're hiring this coach and we know internally, even if we won't acknowledge it externally, what this means. And so we're going to, if he says, you know what, we're going to violate text message laws or bylaws by the NCAA, or we're going to make extra phone calls because we need this advantage, you protect him. And the reason that he was fired from IU was not, oh my God, he's doing this. They knew damn well.
Well, and
it's like, but you like everybody knows what goes on with these things. This is not like, this is something where you end up, you turn that stuff over because you don't like something else that's going on with the program. That's really what was occurring. And it's interesting because like, Steve notes, for me, the problem is the way Sampson was made into a scapegoat by sports journalists like Kravitz. And yeah, I mean, this was always the problem, was that the idea was, Sampson was just this terrible influence. And a lot of that was cushioning for Crean. The whole idea of, we had 20 some Fs on the team. Well, yeah, you also fired the coach halfway through a semester and guys got very disinterested in sticking around. Well, that's going to lead to a lot of failed grades. And look, I'm not saying everything was perfect there. I'm not saying that there should have been more control internally on all of that. It's not meant as an excuse on that front, but I say all of this to just reiterate that I don't know if Sampson and Indiana would have fit culturally long term.
That was my final point. I mean, first off, you also had a university that was still trying to come to terms with what's it like to have a coach run the program again. Like you went from Bob Knight, who just controlled everything, and part of that was we don't want somebody to have control, and you give it to Mike Davis, who doesn't have control, and then it's like Sampson was trying to pull control. But as the one who brought this up, I'll end it. these hypotheticals, I always think to, like the Bob Knight, it's like, man, what if he just wouldn't have, pushed the kid or just not do this one thing? And my take is always, it's like, but it would have been something else. Cause like Knight was wired that way, that he was pushing boundaries. And the thing with Sampson, like if he just doesn't make the phone calls or doesn't do the text, it's like, there would have been something else. Because like you said, he's pushing it. Like you bring in Lance Stevenson, that's going to have, there's going to be some ancillary pieces. It's like, you look even today, it's like Lane Kiffin. It's like, well, what if he had, what if he just stayed at Ole Miss? Like, well, then he would have taken a different job next year. Cause like, that's what Lane Kiffin does. And it's like, had it not been the text, had IU just said, you know what, we're not going to fire him in 08. We're going to run this thing out. We're going to give you one more chance. Like there would have been something else because Sampson was going to push the boundaries and IU was going to not want the boundaries pushed.
Yeah. It's
back to today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
No, it's a good point. So anyway, let's talk through. I'm just looking at the other games from yesterday. If there's anything else worth noting, I mean, I do want to mention Illinois. Illinois kind of screwed around early in that game. They end up coming back nicely. They end up winning that game against VCU, 76-55. I feel bad for Illinois a little bit because they also are going to have to play Houston in Houston, and I will be picking Houston in that game largely because I have a hard time seeing Illinois being able to handle the type of defense that Houston is going to bring to the table. And look, I think give Arkansas a lot of credit. That High Point game last night was one of those situations where
they could have, a lot of teams could have lost that. Yeah,
absolutely. And again, this is where, and this is foreshadowing for today, this is where having a singular player who can make a huge difference and make plays at the end of games is such a key for you in the tournament.
I think it's funny is part of the reason the Pacers, just real quick NBA talk, part of the reason the Pacers made that trade and protected their pick top 4 was the idea was there's really only 4 really good players in this draft with Peterson, AJ Debinska, Boozer, and I think one others. And it's like Acuff was not one of those.
Right.
And you watch what he's been doing and what he did last night. And it's like, I wonder if the Pacers are kind of like, can we top 5 protect that? Like in case we like Acuff looks really good. I mean, he looks like he could be like the next Dwayne Wade type. I mean, he looks unbelievable.
I just don't think if you have a healthy Tyrese Halliburton, I don't know that you would need Darius Acuff on your team.
You need, well, do not want to get like, I disagree. You need talent. Like that's the same problem you get into like, hey, we'll draft Sam Bowie because we have Clyde Drexler. Like if there's talent, get talent and then you figure out what to do with it or you trade it. But
yeah, I mean, but running a 6'3" guy out on the court in if you've already got a point guard, I'm not sure where you play him, I guess would be how I would put it. So
you play him on the second team. But all that said, Acuff looks unbelievable.
He looks great. He looks great. It was a great game by him. Anyway,
Ari just shows up in Arkansas and it's like, hey, I'm going to find talent and just put together a team. And like, but that was again a perfect Calipari game where it's like, do you have anything against like High Point is just not just playing well. Like they're getting, it looks like High Point's able to do whatever they want. And it's like, Calipari, you have the better team. What are you doing?
I mean, look, High Point did a lot of things well, and they were a really good team for most of the season. They were a top 100 team in Ken Palm. They didn't really beat anybody all year, but all their metrics were really good. And I mean, they really thrived on not turning the ball over most of the season and really pressuring their opponent. And I think that can be difficult if your team is not liable to take a team seriously. That's a real struggle for your team in those situations. But look. And I mean, Joey's talking about it in the chat. Calipari, great recruiter, but never been a great coach. I mean, here's the thing: if you took Calipari's record and superimposed it on a lot of other people's historical outcomes, it's pretty good. I mean, it's one of those situations where, as we've seen, Kentucky may not be in this era quite as guaranteed of a winner in and out like year over year as they think they are. That's going to be an interesting thing to think about, and especially in context of IU. I mean, if you look at what Kentucky's done now over the course of the last 5 years, they made a Sweet 16 last year, but then again, so did Arkansas.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm not here to defend Calipari. I think it's a little bit, to me, the defense, the anti-Calipari argument isn't like, look at those results. Would you take those somewhere else? Like 1,000,000%. It's the amount of talent you have versus your output. It's like, yeah, he's getting great results. He also had like John Wall and 2 other NBA players on a team. It's like, you should be probably going to Final Fours and winning titles every year with what you have on the roster. Anyway, that's more my take. Is it's like he's had such an immense talent collection because he's such a good recruiter. There's a world where it's like those results are kind of like, it feels like the minimum level at Kentucky to win 1 title with the number of NBA players that went through there.
It's interesting because there's arguments to be made for that either way. I think the way I would view it is that you might almost at some point be too good of a recruiter, because one of the things that we've learned over time is just putting an all-star team together doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a team that will win a title, because they don't necessarily fit together that well. And honestly, that's what it's felt like with a lot of Calipari's teams. I actually think this Arkansas team he's got this year is one of the better teams that he's coached.
Yeah.
And I will criticize him as a roster builder, which is ironic given how good of a recruiter he is. And I've often wondered if that is perhaps the bigger issue with him, not necessarily his in-game coaching acumen per se.
Yeah, because you have guys like SGA and Bam, where it's like, I didn't know they Tyler Hero for a little bit. It's like, man, those guys played at Kentucky. It's like, oh yeah, they're just like, they had so many dudes.
But it also goes back to this idea, and we've talked about it here a little bit, where it's like, if you're just pulling in 5-star freshmen and they're leaving after a year after year, you're dealing with freshmen, and they might be really talented freshmen, but they're still generally freshmen, and it's hard to win.
Right.
At the highest
level. With an entourage with agendas. Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk about the games today. And I think we start off with the early games.
Well, hold on. Did your survivor pick from yesterday? So I picked Michigan State. They played around a little bit. They got it. And so I've made it through clean to Sunday in the Horry survivor pick, which I'm not sure I've ever done. So I had my pick today. I got to pull it up. For the first time, this is probably why I'm going to lose, because I started thinking about the future a little bit. I was debating between Iowa State and Houston, because again, I want to pick teams that are going to win now. Yeah. But I'm like, I think they'll both win today. I think Houston has better.
Houston played yesterday.
Oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, I'm really going to.
So please don't pick them today.
Sorry, I have like 17 tabs open. It was Iowa State and Florida. I'm sorry. Iowa State and Florida were the 2 teams I was looking at. But I was like, you know what? I think I saw something fly behind you. Galen's under attack. Oh no, the drones.
It's a drone. That's right.
Florida has more, like, to me, a little bit better chance. I might use Florida later on. So I went with Iowa State. So that's my survivor pick.
Well, my only concern with Iowa State is that they're missing their best player. And it's not just their best player, but it's a guy who does everything for Iowa State. So Joshua Jefferson gets knocked out within the first 2 minutes of their game on Friday, and I don't think he's playing. Like that was a pretty severe ankle sprain. And so I love the rest of their players. I mean, Momcilovic and Blake Buchanan and Tamin Lipsey, but I mean, Jefferson is their highest usage player. He's their best rebounder. He's their best assist man. He gets blocks. He gets steals. So I'm a little bit concerned about Iowa State today.
Yeah, I'm with you. Kentucky is also just so inconsistent.
They are. I am picking St. John's today.
Okay, going Patino.
Yeah, I for a couple of reasons. I'm much like you. I am thinking a little bit about the future. I could pick someone else today if I wanted to, but I'm going to trust the metrics in that St. John's, I think, defensively is the type of team that's going to give Kansas a whole lot of trouble. I thought Peterson, the whole thing with Peterson after the game on Friday with Cal Baptist was weird. It was a kind of a standoffish.
His whole season has been weird. I mean, this
is very
weird.
Yes.
This is, again, I promise I won't turn this into an NBA talk, but this is going to be one of those where I don't know what the answer is now, but in retrospect, it's going to look like if he comes out and just is a stud pro, it's going to be this like massive referendum on NIL, and like guys don't care about college, and you know, it'll spark a lot of debates. I'm telling you, people being like, this is the new thing of like guys just load managing their way through college. if he comes out and is a bust, it'll be like, well, this is exactly the Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, like guys who don't care and aren't winners in college, aren't winners in the pros. And like,
Right.
I honestly see it both. I don't know which way it's going to go, but it's going to be very easy to see in retrospect. It's one of those where, like, looking back, you'll know one way or the other. It's like, oh yeah, the guy just didn't care, or the guy didn't care and is not good. But like, it's a very odd year. And if I was an NBA team, I would be petrified taking him first.
It's tough. I mean, there was an interesting article in The Athletic that tried to cast it as he's just been dealing with physical issues that he was unexpectedly like having to deal with. I don't know if that's true or not. I know that
you'll say it. Just say I'm injured. Like,
yeah, that's the thing. And I love the idea that, oh yeah, they're just so supportive of him that they're trying to keep things under wraps, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And
right.
Kansas has been one of those teams this year where they're clearly very talented, but they're just not as good as the other teams that are in the mix. Like, they are outside the Ken Pop top 20. They've lost 10 games. They lost 4 out of their last 7 in the regular season. And that included, a loss at home to Cincinnati, a loss on the road to Arizona State. And frankly, like, they looked real good for the first 20 minutes against Cal Baptist. And then they just
stopped caring.
Yeah, they just collapsed down a stretch. You can get away with that against Cal Baptist. You're not going to be able to get away with that against St. John's. And so the big concern with St. John's is, again, can they score consistently enough? But their defense is good. They're actually very similar to Nebraska in a lot of ways, just from a statistical perspective, in terms of their overall output. They're 39th in offensive efficiency. They're 10th in defensive efficiency. Nebraska, by comparison, 51st in offensive efficiency and 7th in defensive efficiency. So, much like Houston, this is actually a St. John's team that is slightly better than what they've been previously. And I'm really interested to see how that goes. And as Joey points out, it'd be great to get Duke versus St. John's in the Sweet 16 in the District of Columbia. I would be fascinated by that as well.
What do you think about
Nick notes Bill Self seems unconvinced that his own team is good enough, which is an issue. Yes.
Well, Bill Self seems unconvinced he may want to coach again. He kind of has that look of a guy who's like ready for the retirement party.
I feel bad for him. He's just had so many health issues the last couple of years. And yeah, it's a rough way to end for a guy who's still relatively young. Sorry, go ahead.
Agreed. I mean, also has like FBI investigations that seem to not be good. What about Big Ten focused again? What about Miami and our old friend Malik Renew? Do you think they'd be able to take down Purdue?
So I love
today, again, marquee game, all eyes on Purdue.
Yeah, Purdue. I don't think this is a great matchup for Miami, just because I don't think that they don't play defense well enough, I think, to stymie what Purdue does offensively. And Miami doesn't have the offense to compensate for that. So when you look at this matchup, what I see is a Miami team that, they're decent from 3-point range, but they're not awesome. Most of what they do is they're very efficient down low. And the big issue that I have is that Miami is not a particularly good team defending the 3-point shot. And when you get right down to it, I just don't think that Miami is going to be able to apply the kind of ball pressure to Purdue that they will need to keep them from whipping the ball around the court, getting open threes. Missouri was that was not a great defense either. And Missouri was level with them with about 5 minutes left. And then for whatever reason, Missouri stopped playing offense. It just was, that game could have gone very differently. I think Miami was lucky to win that game. And I just don't think that they have enough at this point to do something against Purdue.
You're way too analytical on this one. You're missing one just glaring thing that's standing out there is
what's that?
Purdue made the bracket, and then they look at it. It's like, all right, well, Sweet 16 to get the Elite 8, we got to get through either Gonzaga as the 3 or BYU as the 6. This seems to be Purdue's story almost every year in the tournament, where suddenly the bracket seems to open up in front of them, and then they just jam their toe on the first step of trying to get there. It's like, it looks like they have a pathway to the Elite 8 right now. And normally when those things happen is when Purdue just immediately, Lucy pulls the football and they fall flat on their face. Like that's the thing that immediately I saw when I looked at this is it's like this is where all Purdue fans are eyeing. It's like, do we want to play Arizona? Do you want to play Arkansas? It's like, no, you're not going to play anybody because you're going to lose right now.
Yeah. Well, look, I still think Purdue was overseeded for what they are this season.
Yeah.
And look, they're an amazingly efficient offensive team. And that largely comes because they shoot the ball really well. They don't turn it over, and they grab offensive rebounds. It's a great combo. And they've been able to get away with being average or maybe below average
Mid,
in terms
of might say
mid in keeping their opponents from shooting, because they do such a great job of rebounding defensively. So I think there are teams that are going to give Purdue real problems. I just don't think Miami's going to be one of them. So looking at the other games today and the other ones that would be notable. So a couple of games that I think are really going to be fascinating. Tennessee, Virginia. That's going to be a game that is, I think, tight down to the wire. Tennessee's actually favored in all of the metrics in this one, just slightly. And then Texas Tech, Alabama, where obviously you've got a key player missing for Alabama, but you've got a key player missing for Texas Tech that people have kind of forgotten about. I don't even know which way to go in these games. To me, these are gambling stayaways. They are knockout pool stayaways. I could see either any of these four teams could win the game that they're in today, and it wouldn't be a shock.
The reverse is, I think Florida and Arizona are just ready to roll. Like, I just think that based on, especially Florida playing Iowa, like it just feels like the style of tempo, Florida's going to take that over and just run that game into the ground. I think, and I would kind of throw UConn in there as well, although UCLA has been playing better. I think on the flip side, Florida, Arizona, and UConn are a great, money line parlay to probably go wrong, but just feels like throw those together with whatever NBA tanking team you want to pick to lose tonight too. Feels like a nice 4 or 5 team parlay right there.
Yeah. No, I think the thing that I will note is, I don't give Iowa much of a shot. Like the style that Iowa plays can work, and you'll knock off a couple of teams in conference play that are above your station with that style. But if you look, I'll go back to a point you made earlier, they have not beaten anybody outside of Nebraska at home. That is, like, their next best win was Ohio State at home. And then their next best win was Indiana on the road. Iowa has done a great job of beating teams that they should beat and losing to teams that they should lose to. And so, I think you should absolutely
they also lost 6 of 8 to finish the season, which is always one of those when you look back, it's like, oh man, they didn't finish the season strong. I mean, if you add in the tournament, the Big Ten tournament, they lost 7 of 9 to finish the year. That's not a great, it's one of those you look back and like, oh yeah, they were not doing great to end the year.
Well, and look, I mean, they beat Clemson, but I don't think Clemson was that good. You cannot say the same thing about Florida. So I would go on that front. Who was the other one that you were talking about that you felt was ready to roll? Arizona,
yeah.
Yeah. So I will say this is one I'm a little intrigued by, just because I think, Jared Calhoun, we heard some rumors now he's getting heavily mentioned for the Cincinnati job, which would be an interesting move for him. That'd be a great hire for Cincinnati if they could pull him in. But the matchup between these two teams is an interesting one, in as much as Utah State's pretty good offensively. Arizona's just really good defensively, but these two teams, their strengths are the other team's defensive strengths. So Utah State, their big strength is shooting the ball, and Arizona's big defensive strength is keeping their opponents from shooting the ball well. And that's where I think their size comes into play. I think this could be closer than people think it will be. I still think Arizona is going to win, but I like the spread right now, I think was like 11 or 12. I could see Utah State covering that fairly easily, because I think they are methodical enough in what they do that it could present some problems for Arizona. Again, though, this is a team that has yet to play really high-level competition throughout the course of the year. So I'm certainly not expecting Utah State to win. I just think they have the capacity to keep it close.
Are you okay if I go a little big picture on the tournament?
I tell you what, before you do that, one last game that I wanted to talk about. We talked a little bit about Iowa State, Kentucky. already. We didn't talk about UCLA UConn. This is one I would keep an eye on, because the one thing about this game, even though UCLA is banged up, UConn is just, they're not as good offensively as you would think.
Is this the game we could get double teased by two coaches?
It's very possible, yes. Although they may, like matter and antimatter, they may just cancel each other out. It's hard to say.
Just like, we're just not doing this right now. Both of you guys, shut up.
But like, Connecticut offensively is not as good as you think, and UCLA offensively is better than you think. If I was going to pick an upset possibility, this would be it. I think UConn's going to win. I just think that it has the real potential to be close, and UCLA has talent. They have a level of athletic talent that will be equivalent to whatever UConn saw in the Big East this year, with the possible exception of St. John's. So I would just keep an eye on this game, because I do think that Cronin, for as much as people like to criticize Mick Cronin, he is a good coach. He got a UCLA team to the Final Four that came out of the play-in game a few years ago. I wouldn't be shocked to see him do something surprising in this game. I like UConn's shot-making ability, but I also think it's worth noting they struggled a bit against Furman, and that was surprising to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, you wanted to go big picture. So
just big picture, Big Ten thoughts. So we still have, we have a lot of the Big Ten teams still in at this juncture on Sunday morning. What are your thoughts? Like, who do you think from the Big Ten has the best chance to make the Final Four? And maybe like, how many Big Ten teams do you see in the Final Four? Because we still have a Big Ten team in every bracket right now.
We did have a question from earlier from Nick. It seems like Big Ten teams are playing much more free in the tournament. Is this a case of the Big Ten season being so grueling, or is it a difference in officiating? I mean, I think, look, a lot of it is whenever you're in conference play, there's so much tape on what you can do. And you are always going to be facing a coach and a team that has played you before, has watched a ton of tape, knows your limitations, knows your weaknesses, and goes right at them. When you get out of that environment and you're playing teams that aren't used to what you do, it is a big advantage. And I think the big difference this year is that the Big Ten has several legitimately talented teams. Michigan State, Illinois, Purdue, Nebraska, UCLA. I mean, these are not fluke teams. These are teams that have a lot of talent. And where I think the Big Ten has struggled in the past has been they've had players that can win in the Big Ten, but don't have the athleticism to win in tournament settings when it's freer for them. You've had so many Big Ten teams rely on the, wrestling on hardwood Big Ten officiating that you traditionally get. Now you've got teams, I think, that are almost impeded by that in the regular season, and they've been able to go in. I mean, we're not talking enough about Nebraska, who was, 57th in offensive efficiency, handling a Vanderbilt team that was on fire offensively, and we saw that in the SEC tournament. That was a big win for the Big Ten last night.
Yep.
So to answer your question, look, the answer is Michigan. Michigan is by far the most talented and the most well-conceived of the teams, in that they are not biased heavily one way or another. Illinois and Purdue are both heavily biased towards their offense, and they're very good as a result of it. Michigan State is more biased.
It's a tough bracket.
Yeah, they have not been as consistently efficient offensively as they need to be a serious contender in my mind. Nebraska's very heavily biased towards their defense. I'm thrilled after years of the Big Ten feeling like it doesn't have what it takes athletically. It feels like they've gotten very close to that now. And any of those teams I mentioned, with the exception of UCLA, I could see making a Final Four or winning a national title. I think, though, by far, it's Michigan with the best shot, not just because of their talent and how they're put together, but because of the path that they have in front of them.
Yeah. I would agree. I think I hate picking the chalky piece, but I like Michigan. I think that, based on the injuries, even though they still are my survivor pick, it's like, Alabama, if Alabama makes it as kind of a, they're missing a player, and just the rest of Michigan's bracket doesn't look as concerning. You're only going to get one, either Illinois or Nebraska, and I'm not sure either of them are making the Elite Eight. And same, I think Purdue could end up making the Elite Eight, but I'm not sure they're going to get there against Arizona. So I agree with you. And I think in a different bracket, Michigan State might have done another one of these Houdini Final Fours, but I'm just not sure if this is the right bracket for them this year. Although it does look like Duke is still kind of playing with their food and not I just don't know with Duke. Is there something not going on there, or are they just not interested in showing everything they have?
I tend to think that Duke is not the contender we thought they were this year. And some of it has been the injuries, and some of it may just be that there are some exploitable things that the ACC was not able to exploit. Now, that doesn't mean that they aren't capable of beating anybody. Obviously, they beat Michigan on a neutral floor just a couple of weeks ago. Right. So I can only really remember a couple of times when a team played this far down to their competition in the first couple of games and still went on to win, or at least get to a title game. Like the one that always comes to mind is the second Fab Five year in 1993. And that team almost lost to UCLA in the second round. And that team struggled again in the following round. And so now they ended up getting all the way to the title game. So you can get going, and there's some similarities there just in terms of the age of the players and whatnot. But I just have this feeling that, whether it's St. John's, whether it's Michigan State, if Michigan State, I think I would pick them against UConn if they end up playing UConn. And I don't hate Michigan State's chances against either Duke or St. John's, just because they are more balanced than St. John's, and because I haven't liked what I've seen out of Duke so far. So I do think Michigan State's got a good shot. It's just it requires Michigan State to play at a higher level offensively than they've shown that they can do consistently over time. But defensively, they're right there.
I want to also just look at some outside Big Ten storylines. Like, there's just some wild ones coming out of that East region. It's like if St. John's gets out and you have Pitino, like there's a world where Pitino and Calipari both make the Final Four. Yeah. That would be funny. And then, Kentucky fans are just kind of sitting there. It's like you could have a Pitino, Calipari, and Kelvin Sampson, 3 of the 4 Final Four teams with Nate Oates. Like, talk about a wild coaching symposium there. There's some really interesting storylines that there's still afoot here.
Look, there's a reason why the top coaches are the top coaches. They just know how to get it done. And
Sean Miller in Texas, a great example.
Yeah. And if I'm Purdue, I think it was mentioned earlier, and I'm looking at Texas now as my potential Sweet 16 dance partner, I'm not excited by that. It's a team in Texas that underachieved for a lot of the year. And look, I don't know that BYU or Gonzaga are on the same plane as Purdue in terms of overall ability, but they've got size, and Sean Miller certainly knows how to get a team deep into the NCAA tournament. We've seen it happen before, never to a Final Four, but he's gotten multiple teams to Elite Eights. So there are good coaches out there that have shown an ability over and over to get it done. So it is really interesting thinking about that East region, because you've got Izzo and you've got Pitino, and then you've got Shire, who I think is, you're still to some degree not entirely certain if Shire's got the high-end coaching ability. He made the Final Four last year, obviously. And the thing is, last year, that team was the best team in the country, but they end up losing to Houston in that game in the Final Four. And people forget about this, but Houston outscored them 25-9 at the end of the game, went on a 10-0 run and 11-1 run, 2 separate runs like that in the final 10 minutes. I mean, when you've got, what was the score at that point? It was 59-45 Duke in that game with about 8 minutes to play, and they somehow lost 70-67.
Well, the thing with Shire is, like we talked about a little bit yesterday, it's like he's got the Guthrie thing for you in North Carolina. Is like Shire had such immense inertia from the Krzyzewski years that Guthridge. I keep messing. I'm never going to get it right. Who cares? But it's like so much inertia, unlike probably only Guthridge from UNC, where it's just like, I don't know if Guthridge was a good coach or not, but he made a Final Four and an Elite Eight. It's like, but you just had so much talent. You had such a system that was built up. And it's the same thing with what Shire has at Duke with Krzyzewski. Like, I feel like you can't really judge him until you get 4 or 5 or 6 years down the road, which may be unfair, but to me, it's just like part of this is the Krzyzewski inertia.
I mean, he's so far in his 4 years,
has it been 4 years already?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm getting all right. Well, I'm getting old. It feels like
20,
it's only second year.
27-9, lost in the second round. 27-9, lost in the Elite Eight. 35-4, lost in the Final Four. 34-2 this year, and this is 2 years in a row he's had the number one Ken Pom team going into the tournament. So all
right. I'm getting old, man. I think they're just happening quicker than I thought.
It is what it is. So,
yeah.
But anyway,
as you said it, I couldn't believe you're right, because you're not wrong. Sean Miller not been to a Final Four. Like, I just would have thought at Arizona he would have people don't get old. Like, I remember being 28 and I knew all the NCAA champions. I probably could have named all the Final Fours. Life starts happening and things go by fast, and it's like suddenly people are places 7 years you don't realize. I guess, yeah, he never made a Final Four at Arizona. It's just I would have thought that trivia question.
3 Elite Eights, and then all of the stuff with the FBI investigation happened, and that pretty much put the spike in Arizona under Sean Miller. But anyway, thank you. Yes, we need to get those. We'll get those printed this summer, I'm sure. That's amazing. The only other thing I was going to bring up, just looking overall at the tournament. So here's what you're looking at potentially right now. You've got Duke as an ACC team. They'll be playing either a Big East or a Big 12 team. Michigan State is a Big 10 team. They'll be playing either a Big 10 or a Big East team. You've got Nebraska as a Big 10 team. They'll be playing either a Big 10 or an SEC team. And you've got a Big 10 team in Illinois taking on a Big 12 team in Houston. For the spots in the final or in the Sweet 16 in the Midwest, you've got a Big 10 team in Michigan taking on either Big 12 or SEC. You've got Big 12 or SEC taking on ACC or SEC in Virginia and Tennessee. You've got Purdue as a Big 10 team, or Miami as an ACC team taking on Texas as a Big 12. And then you've got Arkansas as an SEC team taking on either a Mountain West team in Utah State or a Big 12 team in Arizona. Consolidation, Scott. Not a lot of teams outside of that core group of conferences, which that's where reorganization and realignment has been heading. But we're drawing out of the same well here. And it's interesting because all of these conferences, I think they have something that they can lay their hat on or hang their hat on. I'm curious to see what the final roster ends up being when the games are over today.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to this has been a very chalky. I mean, the only double-digit seed left is Texas, if I'm reading this all right. So I mean, that's part of it. Had High Point won, or had we done this, had the games been flipped and High Point game was today, it's like that would have been a little different. So part of it is just the moment in time you're picking. But yeah, no, I mean, most Sweet 16s are probably down to the same 5 conferences every year anyway, outside of one outlier. And like you said, it's just consolidation where you're just having, by the way, that was impressive because I would have done pretty well on that. But even I have sometimes it's like, what conference are they in? What conference is that team in again? I mean, it always seems to be changing because Gonzaga's changing soon too, I believe, but they're not playing anymore. No, I mean, this is the, let more chalkiness, but again, that doesn't mean it's a bad tournament. It matters if the game's good. But yeah.
Well, hopefully the games are good today. And, it was a nice ending to yesterday. Let's carry that momentum through. We had a not so exciting Friday. So hopefully that turns into a really exciting Sunday.
And I would say too, I've been very happy outside of Wisconsin. Like the Big Ten has acquitted itself well, but it does feel like we're getting to that point. Like today could be a rough day for the Big Ten. Like these moments are you can have a moment like right now where it's like, wow, we got a lot of Big Ten schools, around. And very quickly it could be, I guess no matter what, you're going to have Michigan, Nebraska, Illinois, and Michigan State. But it could just be that's all we have left after the end of today.
That's a quarter of the Sweet 16. That's pretty good. So
yeah,
but I think they'll end up. You'll add Purdue for certain, as far as I'm concerned today. And look, UCLA springs an upset. That's a really good year for the Big Ten. So
yeah. Well, but they've had really good years. They've had at some point it'd be nice to see them cash it in. It'd be nice if it wasn't Purdue, though.
Absolutely. All right. Well, as always, we appreciate you folks tuning in and chatting some basketball with us. The first game getting started in a little over an hour.
Yeah.
And look forward to watching a full day of basketball and
enjoy. This is sad, man. Like,
yeah.
It's a bummer because this is kind of the end of, we always talk about this great run of sports, and it is a great run of sports, which thank you to IU football for bringing the CFP into that great run. So we'll add that to it. But you have, the end of the NFL, you have the CFP now, you have the NFL playoff rush leading right into the Super Bowl, leading right into, oh my God, college basketball. I mean, for a lot of people, you and me, as we called it, sickos, like we're obviously keeping up with it, but it's like you get to the end, you have the end of the tournament, the end of the conference, and you have the conference tournaments, and you have this. This kind of feels like the end of that initial massive dopamine rush. This would be like the first, the first real hit of something. It's like, this is the moment. And then it's like, from here, it's like, it kind of next week is like, oh, all right, 2 games at a time. Like 2 games on Thursday, 2 games on Friday, then it slows down. Then you get the Masters and you kind of slow it down. You get into the 8,500. Like, there's still some fun stuff happening, but this is always a sad moment for me because it feels like this is really the end of that insane adrenaline 2.5, 3 month rush.
I mean, I'm just sad because it's the end of 4 days of constant basketball and really the end of about a 2.5 week stretch of that. Because it always feels like different business once you get to the Sweet 16. Yeah. And I mean, those games are still fun, they're still competitive, but they're, it's like those games are at night on Thursday and Friday. So it's a little harder to keep up with everything. And then you find yourself in a situation where it's like, well, damn, now we've only got Elite 8 games. Now we got 1 game Saturday, one game Sunday. It wraps up.
And this is where I wonder, like, would this make sense if you're the Crown or you're the NIT, but more likely the Crown would stay on? Like, why do they wait so? I mean, who knows? But it's like, I think of the counter programming kind of idea and like finding those weekends where nothing else is happening. Like, everyone is so jammed on basketball these last 4 days. It feels like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday would be a perfect time to just have Crown games.
I mean, you're just not going to get as many people tuning in on those days.
Well, I know, but you're not going to go up against or waiting to April 1st also isn't the answer. Like, let's wait 3.5 weeks and people see if they're still into basketball. Like, you have this, you could be getting it fired up and like, I don't know. I mean, whatever they're doing now isn't working. Like, let's just put it that way.
I mean, it's only the second year of the tournament, so let's give them a few more years before we, or just have the tournament cancel itself. But
yeah, all right, well, fan of the Crown, Galen.
Yeah, hey, someone's got to support it. Anyway, we'll be back later on. We'll be back later this week. We'll have more programming coming on. We got some football programming coming up soon. We'll have our normal midweek CrimsonCast and then some other items coming up here as well. Be sure to check out the full array of shows on the Back Home Network. And we appreciate you folks tuning in. If you're in Indiana, be cautious. You got some thunderstorms rolling in later today. We, of course, couldn't have a beautiful day in the spring without there being thunderstorms. But we will be back later on. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube. Tell your friends as well. Hit the bell. Get notified whenever we're going to go live. We appreciate all the comments and the thoughts and you guys hanging out with us on Sunday morning. For Scott, I'm Galen. This is CrimsonCast. Stay never daunted. So long, everybody.